Hi, my name is Joe, and welcome to my YouTube channel where I review martial arts books and do videos on other martial arts related subjects. Today I am reviewing a book called Hoi Jeon Moo Sool, and it was published in 2002 by Salah Al-Kharraz. And this is sort of unique in my collection because it was published locally in Bahrain. During my Navy days, we were actually in the Gulf, and a buddy of mine was flying out from a different location, and while he was waiting to be flown out in Bahrain, he saw this book, thought of me, and got it. So, thanks, John. Anyway, so Hoi Jeon Moo Sool is a variation of Hapkido. It's related to Hapkido. Let me say it's related. I need to do it. Frankly, I should have done more research into finding out exactly its relation to Hapkido. This book, credit to the author, I assume probably speaks Arabic as a first language. He's taking Korean terminology and translating them into English, and he's not native to either language. So, this man has my full respect when it comes to, sort of putting it out there and putting in some work. The first part of the book, just the intro, goes over like the different ways martial arts are sort of classified. If you've been in martial arts long enough, you may have heard some of these terms like external versus internal or hard versus soft styles. He also goes over the, just briefly about Moo Sool, including, what the symbol represents. After that, he starts off with breathing techniques that to me seem to resemble Qigong or Qigong. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of similar exercises in East Asia. After that, there's a section on, I guess you'd sort of call it gymnastics. It's like rolling, falling, including like jumping, like a jumping roll into a fall. Sort of the basics that you would find in most forms of grappling from East Asia, like judo and jujutsu, and then progressing into, again, more acrobatic methods. He also shows some solo exercises which seem to be designed to sort of help one gain better kinesthetic awareness. They remind me of some exercises I've seen in Aikido. They're solo exercises that are designed to sort of help you blend with incoming momentum. You get used to being sort of pliant. And around that section, it also has some avoidance drills, like, footwork and some body movement. After that, we get a brief illustration and description of the basic strikes, blocks, and kicks. At this point, they are given Korean terminology as well. And after that, you get wrist freeing techniques. So someone grabs your wrist, here's how to get it out. And again, this has a lot in common with what I'm familiar with in the more traditional Japanese grappling systems. A very self-defense oriented approach to martial arts. After that, it actually moves on to even more hand techniques, as well as combinations and defensive forms. In other words, opponent attacks with this, you defend with this, and, execute a throw. These are all, there are no photographs for almost all the techniques. They are all illustrated. They're relatively clear illustrations, but they are kind of small, and they could definitely be more detailed. I think for the most part, even with the brief description, it's not difficult to figure out what they're trying to convey. Anyway, then you also get another illustrated section of selected throws and locks. These take up full pages and are much easier to see. And after that, it's defenses against selected attacks. So there does seem to be a lot of overlap in these sections. And finally, you get the belt requirements. They're spelled out per gup level. Yup. The Korean term for not black belt. You know, the below the black belt area. So those are spelled out. So if you want to do any Moo Sool, you know, you can go, okay, in order to get my blue belt, I need to do this, 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 and this. And there is a lot of Korean terminology throughout this book. Again, credit to the author for trying to take Korean words and translate them into English. As far as the prose go, this book it's a little bit on the ambitious side in the scope of what it's trying to cover. Like I said, everything from like breathing exercises, like solo movement drills, you know, kicks including, you know, multiple flying kicks, some locks and throws, defenses against specific attacks, you know, then you got the history section. There's a lot that's being covered in here. And another pro, I would say, is that despite the fact that they're kind of small, you know, like barely bigger than my thumb, I do think the illustrations, for the most part, are pretty clear. As I said, you can figure out between the illustrations and the text, you got a pretty good idea of what's actually being conveyed. As far as the cons go, there isn't a whole lot in the way of text. You know, you get the name of a technique and maybe a couple small illustrations showing body movement. And, you know, more text would have helped. It would definitely have helped. There are also some minor editorial errors, I think probably made during the translation process. For instance, you know, talking about the different kinds of blocks, one of them is labeled as a black, B-L-A-C-K, instead of a B-L-O-C-K. You know, there were a couple little things like that. It's really hard for me to like ding the author for that, because again, I really respect the idea of you're trying to write in two languages that you didn't grow up speaking. You know, that's impressive. But as a reader, I can see how someone would be thrown off. Who would I recommend this to? If you are able to find a copy, I'd honestly say the best people to get this would be if you are studying Moo Sool in Bahrain, you know, because there can't be that many teachers there. There can't be that many organizations. This is probably current to what they're teaching in the schools. So this would be the equivalent of a study guide. Outside of that, if you are not in that very particular situation, it's not bad as far as a general reference. And I would say that because of the lack of text, that's about the most I would find it useful as. You know, I'm used to seeing books where you can have like pages or even entire books dedicated to explaining how to do a technique. You know, or at the least a couple of paragraphs. This has nothing like that. You know, in the former situation, if you've got fairly decent reading comprehension, if you walk yourself through the various steps of what the book is describing, you can at least have a basic understanding of how to do a move. This is not that book. So because I don't think it works well as an instructional, I would say it probably does okay as a reference book, as I said again. And I'd say particularly if you already have a background in Korean martial arts, you know, you might find it interesting to go through this book and, you know, take a look at the Korean terminology and go, oh, I know what that is. You know, I know how to do that, and now I know that it's in this particular system. So this review has been a little bit brief, but there's not really much to talk about concerning this book. But I have fond memories of the circumstances under which I received it. So go Navy! And that's all I got for this week. I guess I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in.